Certainly some film noirs are filled with wisecracks and comic moments. For example, The Big Sleep, Third Man, or Strangers on a Train. But can there be a film noir comedy? Does Unfaithfully Yours qualify? And that's from John.
Yeah.
I say yes.
Well, you know, we've had this question a few times, it seems.
Yeah.
And whereas I don't consider a comedy, a film that's clearly meant to be a comedy,
Yeah.
I don't consider it film noir.
Right.
Obviously, there are movies that are satires and parodies of film
Right.
noir, and Unfaithfully Yours is a classic example of that. And it's not the only one. There are many. You know, my favorite, Brunette, the Bob Hope movie, was clearly made to like satirize the whole film noir movement as it was happening. You know, Alan Ladd is in the movie playing an Alan Ladd tough guy. You know,
Good Humor Man.
The Good Humor Man with Jack Carson is like a classic example of a. I think we've talked about that one at some length.
Yeah, we did.
Because that was a straight screenplay, a Roy Huggins screenplay, and when Frank Tashlin rewrote it, he just made the guy a good humor man, and it changed the whole picture. All of a sudden, there was all this opportunity for comedy. But Unfaithfully Yours is absolutely, and it's fascinating that I know I've said this before, but for this gentleman or woman's benefit, I'll say it again. Preston Sturges wrote that in the 1930s, and it couldn't get made because obviously it might have been made as a pre-code film, but certainly not once the code kicked in 34. And then it couldn't be made because it was just too sordid and weird that a guy trying to imagining all the ways he's going to murder his wife. But then after The Postman Always Rings Twice and all that stuff, it was like, well, this is it. Now's the time to make this film. It's perfect. So that's what happened.
Yeah,
Hysterical movie.
Yeah.
Hysterical movie. Were you there, Anne, at the festival in San Francisco the night I showed Unfaithfully Yours and The Good Humor Man as a double bill?
And I think that might have been the year I had the flu because I was because Unfaithfully Yours is a personal favorite. It's a film that it's one of my favorite films to watch when I'm sick. That and Invasion of the Body Snatchers, for some reason. I like those films.
Because Invasion of the Body Snatchers is a barrel of laughs. That's why.
But I was pissed to miss Good Humor Man. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it was actually, as much as the purists will say, "Oh my God, Eddie, what are you talking about?" I will say that night was one of my favorite nights at a Noir City Festival, to see 1,000 people reduced to childlike laughter. They just couldn't help themselves. I mean, all the slapsticky stuff and Unfaithfully Yours, where Rex Harrison is like, screwing everything up and getting hit on the head and stepping through the drum and all this stuff. And then the end of Good Humor Man with the kids and the swimming pool and the buzzsaw loose in the pool and all this stuff. The entire audience was helpless with laughter. And that was really, really great to see. A bunch of adults just bawling like kids at a Saturday matinee in the 40s or something. It was delightful.
Yeah, it was great. Back when the Neptune in Seattle used to do rep theater, they had a Preston Sturges series, and it was so great to see those films up on a big screen with an actual audience. It was just one of my best cinematic going experiences. But I think the thing about Unfaithfully Yours, though, that's really interesting is when he imagines murdering his wife, it is vicious. I mean, it is a really brutal scene. It's actually one of the most brutal killings I've seen in that period of film. I mean, I really, Sturges was always great at pushing boundaries, but that was really, I'm really surprised that it was left in the way that it was. because it's
Because it was a comedy.
yeah, I guess so. Because yeah, you're right. Because if that had been a serious film, there is no
They
way
would they would have
that would
cut
have
they
gone
would have
past
cut
the
it out.
censors.
Yeah. Yeah.
But of course, I mean, this is also a man who did Miracle at Morgan's Creek during the peak of the war effort. Making a film about essentially a girl that gets knocked up, in a one-night stand.
Preston
and
Sturgis.
it parodies the Virgin Mary.
Good stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, Sturgis. Yeah. I still consider him the greatest film writer of all time.
Yeah, I won't argue the point. I mean, Billy Wilder is right there in my estimation, but
Yeah.
those two guys can do no wrong.
Yeah, it's just incredible.